Welcome to another configuration guide for the VELOCITYONE flight, yoke and throttle quadrant from Turtle Beach. It's time to update our configuration following the release of Firmware Update 1.1.0, and this applies to both Xbox and PC. This update has activated 4 new buttons, meaning we can now set reverses and prop feather accurately. And for the PC version, well, we can get the lights on. Welcome to the SimHanger, my name's Mark, thanks for watching and let's get started. In this video we'll only be focusing our attention on the changes that have taken place following the firmware update. If you're looking for more information on configuring the VELOCITYONE flight, you can see my previous config guides. Part 1, which covered both Xbox and PC and focused on the yoke, and then a separate Part 2 for both Xbox and PC with the focus on the throttle quadrant settings. And in addition, if you're wanting to know more about the VELOCITYONE flight, well, you can catch my full review. Links to all the videos are in the notes below. First things first, we need to update the firmware to version 1.1.0, and we do this through Turtle Beach's Control Center. It's available from the Microsoft Store on either Xbox or PC. Once in the Control Center, follow the on-screen prompts. And on the display panel on your yoke, going to Settings, Firmware Update, and then activate the Update mode. Once that's done, it will automatically update. Once it's finished updating, you will know it's been successful, as it will say current firmware is version 1.1.0. And you're done. For the PC version only at this time, you can get the status indicator panel lights on and functioning within Microsoft Flight Simulator. They're not individually configurable at this time, but they do function just fine providing the aircraft you're flying is using the default mappings for the various functions within Microsoft Flight Simulator. It does require the download of an additional executable file that will run outside the sim, and it's for this reason why it's not available yet on the Xbox. To get them functioning on the Xbox, I'm assuming that Turtle Beach are going to have to get Microsoft or Asobo to bake these into the default profile. Turtle Beach have advised that the program required to activate the status indicator panel has been posted on their Discord and Reddit pages, and I'll leave links to their Discord in the notes below. In addition to the executable, you should download the guide. It provides straightforward and detailed information on what you need to do to get the lights working. Well, that's enough of that. Let's get on with configuring our throttle quadrant. For both Xbox and PC, this update has given us 4 new buttons that are at the detent position. This means we can set up far more realistic reverse thrust and also move our prop into the feather position. By detent, I mean the area on each axis past full idle. Previously we'd push those into the detent and nothing would happen. Now when we do, a button activates. Note this only applies to the levers on top of the quad. My configuration settings will apply to both Xbox and PC. Today I'm going to be using the PC as the example. For Xbox users it's the same, you just have to note that the axes and the button numbers are different. As an example, our leftmost lever, the PC button past the detent is button 11. For the Xbox, it's button 41. To demonstrate both reverse thrust and the prop feathering, I'm going to use the Cessna 208 Caravan, but these settings can be applied to any aircraft. Let's just remind ourselves where we've been able to configure up to this point. We've got our throttle or power lever operating, but when we move it down into the detent, nothing happens. And the same can be said for the prop lever. So let's now head back to Control Options menu and see what we can do. For the PC version, we've got the yoke and throttle quadrant as 2 separate configurations. For Xbox, it's 1. We had the up and down buttons configured on the HAT2 switch. HAT2 up was throttle cut and HAT2 down was decreased throttle. I'm going to search by input and it's hat switch 2 down initially, and that's the decreased throttle. Now check the hat 1 switch. Using the detent levers as we intend to, you can now delete these mappings and use the buttons for something else. It's up to you, but you don't have to delete them. They won't conflict. Okay, turning back to the throttle quadrant now. With the filter on assigned, I'm going to Power Management and I'm going to select Throttle. And then I'm going to change my filter to All. This will expand the options under the throttle category. Scroll down and towards the bottom we're looking for Throttle 1 Decrease. There it is, Throttle 1 Decrease. We're now going to click in the box so we can allocate our new detent button to that function. Before doing so, we can search by input and just press the detent down on the throttle. There's nothing mapped to it as expected and it comes up as joystick button 11. Okay, let's bind Throttle 1 Decrease. Now here's an important point. Note that there's an action type and you have two options, on press or on release. When the lever is moved into the detent position, the button is pressed. Default is on press. For Throttle 1 Decrease, we want it on press. For as long as the button is pressed or the lever is in the detent position, the throttle decrease action will be held. So the aircraft will remain in reverse thrust. Now I'm going to click in the Start Scanning box and I'm now going to move the lever into the detent position. And here's another important point. I now move it out of the detent position for it to register fully and then validate. Joystick button 11, Throttle 1 Decrease. That's correct. I'm now looking for Throttle 1 Cut. There it is, and I'm now going to go and click in the scanning box so I can map this function. But this time I'm going to put it on release. On release means the action is carried out as soon as the button is released. So I want the throttles to cut back to idle as soon as I take it out of reverse thrust. So decrease throttle was on press and throttle cut is on release. I'm going to configure the same detent button to this action. To make sure it registers, move it down into detent and back out again. Warning message, but we're okay with that, and validate. We now have the same button doing two different functions. But one is on press and one is on release, so no conflict there. Now here's the next important point. This configurator is a bit buggy. Once you've completed a configuration, go in and check that it is actually recorded as intended. Let's do that quickly. Let's check on throttle cut first, and that's wrong. It should be on release, so let's change it and once again validate. Now let's check the Throttle 1 Decrease. Button 11 on press, that's correct. Always worth checking. Let's apply and save and jump back into the sim and see if it's working. Throttle into the detent position. We've got reverse. Take it out of reverse and we should go back to idle. It's working, all good here. Feathering is an important aspect of piston engines. I'm not going to run into the details of why. You can look that up yourself. Back to our controls menu, power management, change the filter to all and then choose propeller. What we're searching for is hold propeller reverse thrust, not toggle. They're not all listed alphabetically, so it's a little bit of a search. There it is. And I'm going to allocate this to the second lever on the top of the quad. Click in the box. Takes us to our mappings options. I'm going to start scanning. I want it on press, which is default, and move the lever down and then back out again. Joystick button 12. Always make sure that your lever is in the right position or you're going to end up recording the axis movement, and you don't want that. Next we want to choose increase propeller 1 pitch. It's just above the hold. Click in the box. And this time we're going to leave it on press as well. Not going to change it to on release. Press the button, we get a warning message, but we want this button to carry out two actions. We're happy with that, validate. Now hold propeller reverse thrust and increase propeller 1 pitch are allocated to joystick button 12. We're done here, we can apply and save and jump back into the Cessna Caravan. And show you that the prop feather is working, I'm going to pull the condition lever right back and cut the engines. When shutting down, for example, is typically one of the times you would feather an engine. Feathering is related to the angle of the blades, and they are hydraulically moved, as I'll demonstrate now. Look at the prop and you can see it turning. I'll now unfeather it, and they're turning back. And feather again, and they will turn back once again. The prop feathering is working exactly as expected. To finish off with, I just want to touch off on the mixture condition lever axis. Ideally you would want to get mixture or fuel cutoff bound to the detent position on that axis. I wasn't able to do that because of the movement of the axis. It always cut off before I got to the detent position. I tried a whole variety of different changes, including changing the extremity dead zone on the axis. So I was unable to configure this, and I ended up settling on adjusting the extremity dead zone to about 50%. This gave me more movement of the axis before it went into the fuel cutoff position, but I wasn't able to desensitize it enough to get to the detent before fuel cutoff. If anybody else got a better way or a solution to this, please let me know in the comments below. I would greatly appreciate it. The throttle configuration will work as well on airlines as well as props. I hope you found this useful. If that's the case, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. It helps the channel and very much appreciated. If you want to stay up to date with configurations for the VELOCITYONE flight, then don't forget to subscribe. Take care, look after yourselves. I'll see you on the next one, and bye for now.